Welcome back one more time. From the previous lecture, we came to know that when the game is running, there is a thing called game loop, which is continuously running and is responsible for updating the state and rendering the state. And it does that by calling these two methods, update and render. So these two are called simultaneously. After update, it calls the render method. Okay, so I'm going to disable these lines. I don't want to print this console messages in microsecond delays. Okay, so this is the output of our game. We don't have any object. Now it's time to add something on the screen so that we can see, maybe we can move that object left, right, top, bottom, or even we can interact with the game by means of some input. In Flutter, we know that everything is widget. For every purpose, we have a widget. To show a text on the screen, we have a text widget. To show an image on the screen, we have image widget. And similarly, in Flame game, we have components. So components are similar to widgets. So in Flame game, everything is component. If you want to show something on the game screen, like an enemy, like player, like streets, buildings, etc., and etc., then we need to create a component. Okay, so I'm going to take you to the official documentation page, and there is a section called components. And Flame actually comes with a handful amount of components for different types of game objects. So the core class is a component class, but if we start with the core component class, then maybe we need to do a lot of stuffs, and we need to do a lot of stuffs by ourselves. But we normally do, as a beginner, if we want to start with component, we start with a position component. So this is like a most basic component that actually deals with position, the size of the object, the scale of the object, the anchor point, the angle, etc., and etc. So I'm going to create a position component, perhaps like a box or like a rectangle, and then I'm going to add that component to the game. And to do so, the good practice is whenever you create a component, you should create or put the component into a separate folder under this lib directory. So under this lib directory, I'm going to create a new directory called components. And under this components directory, I'm going to create a new dot file. Let's say my position and component. So this will be a class, my position component, that should extend either components. We have component class, which is the core class for component. But like I told you before, that if we extend this class, then perhaps we need to do a lot of stuff by ourselves or manually. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to introduce a very basic component, which is a position component, this one. Okay. And now we have our component, and we didn't provide anything like where this component should be on the screen, at what position, what will be the size, what will be the anchor point, what will be the angle, etc., and etc. But I will do that. But before I do that, I want to add this newly created component to our game. So whenever we have some component in our hand, or we want to create some or add some component to our game, we need to do this inside our game class. So inside our game class, we need to add our newly created component. And the question is where we add those components, in what place, I mean where, in which method. So you know that in Flutter, in widgets, our widgets have life cycles. I mean, for stateless widget, we have only one lifecycle method called build method. But a stateful widget, we have the init state method, we have the did change dependencies method, did update widget method, dispose method, build method, etc., and etc. So every component in Flame game also has a life cycle from the creation to the destruction. So like a stateful widget, like an init state method, we have similar like init state of stateful widget in our Flame game, which is called onLoad. In fact, in every component, we have an onLoad method. And as the name suggests, inside this method, we actually load things. So let's override a new method inside our flame game class, which is on load. If I start typing, it is showing the suggestion. I'm going to hit enter. And this is the signature of this onload method. It actually returns void as a future. We can actually remove this future or just future, and we should mark this method as asynchronous. Okay, so this modification you need to do every time you override this onload method. So this onload method is called when the game is loaded on the system. So first of all, this onload method will be called, and then update and render and other methods. And this onload method will be called only once unless we resize the game. Okay, so inside this onload method, we normally do things which are required to do for only once. For example, now we want to add our newly created component to this game. So what we do is we call a special method called add, which requires a component. So as a parameter of this add method, I'm going to provide a component, and our component is my position component. That's it. So when we start this game, when this flame game is loaded or mounted, when it is in the memory, when it is running, the onload method will be called. And as soon as this onload method is called, we are adding a component. But if I run this method, we see nothing. We see just a green background screen. So where is our component? So position component, if I go to the official website, this position component deals with position, size, scale, angle, and anchor. And unfortunately, we didn't provide anything. That's why we are not looking anything. And if we want to see something, then we need to provide a position. First of all, we need to specify the position. So in the game screen, where we want to see our component. So we need to specify the position. And to put a component in the game screen, you have to understand the game or the positioning system or the coordinate system. Like computer graphics, still the origin of this coordinate system is the top left corner over here. So this is the 0, 0, and this is the positive X, and this is the positive Y value. So this is negative X and that's negative Y. And this is the origin 0, 0. And maybe this is the maximum width of this current screen. We don't know yet what is the current width of this screen or current height, but we can eventually know that. How we can know that? So inside this flame game class, there is a property that we automatically get, and this property actually represents the entire size of the game. And I just want to print the size. So I'm going to print inside this onload method. I'm going to print size. So you see that I start typing size, and there is a property called size, which is a vector 2. So if I now run this game and go to our console, you see the size of the game window. The size of the game window is 1034 pixel wide and 653 pixel tall. Our height is 653. So this is currently the actual size of the game window. If I resize and rerun, then the size will be changed accordingly. Okay. And this is like a vector 2. Vector 2 is simply a class that actually holds 2 points in 2-dimensional space, like the X coordinate and the Y coordinate value, the X value and the Y value. Now, the question is where we should put our position or my position component on the screen. So we need to provide a position first, and we can do so in various ways. But the first way I'm going to show you right now. So inside our my position component.dart class, I am going to override the onload method as well. Like I told you before, that every component has its own onload method, own update method, and own render method. Okay. So I'm going to remove this OR, and I'm going to make this asynchronous. And I'm going to print something from this onload, like print my position component loaded. And also I want to print similar message from the onload method of the game from here. Let me remove the size. Okay. This one. So now if I run this application one more time, you see, okay, so this is not, we should change the message. So I should say game loaded. Okay. So now if I rerun this application, so you see, first of all, the games or the Flame games onload method is called first. And then whenever we add a component, as soon as we add a new component, the corresponding component's onload method will be called as well. This indicates that, okay? And inside this onload method, just like we did inside this Flame games onload method, if we do something for just once, then we write those codes inside this onload method. So here I want to mention the position of this myPosition component. And to specify the position, inside this position component, we automatically inherit a property called position, just like that. And this requires a vector as well. So vector 2 means two-dimensional. That means we need to provide an X value and the Y value. So we know that the current window is 1053 or 54 or 1034 and the height is 653. So we can position this myPosition component anywhere on the screen. For example, let's say the X value should be 200 and the Y value should be 200 as well. And that means we have to go, this is 0, 0. And through the X axis, we need to go 100, like 200. And along the Y axis, we need to go down 100, 200. So this is somewhere the position we want to put our myPosition component. Okay. And if I run this application and see at the window, we see nothing because we just provided the position, but we didn't provided anything else like the texture, like the color, the shape, etc. and etc. And we need to provide that. Okay. So before I provide that, I need to show you one more thing. I need to override another method inside our Flame game, which is a debug mode. So if I start typing debug mode and it requires a Boolean to be returned and I'm returning true, then you will see as soon as I run this application, you see something like this. So like a little dot. And this is our myPosition component, which is staying at X equals 0, 200 and Y equals 200. We are looking at a dot because we didn't specify how much the position will be the width or the height of the position component. We didn't actually specify the shape. And we can do so by providing another vector to another property, which is called size. And it requires a vector 2 object. So let's say our position component will be like 100 pixel wide and 100 pixel tall. So now if I hit run, normally we still will not be able to see the position component because we didn't provide any color. But since the debug mode is on, we see something like that. So this debug mode is actually like creating a border around the position component. And it says that this point is actually 200 by 200, exact position where we wanted to be this position component. And this point over here is 300 by 300 because we have given the size of 100 and 100. So this is the origin. This is the position. And from 200, this is 100 pixel wide and 100 pixel tall. So this point becomes 300 by 300. So we have successfully added our first component to the game. Although we can't see any color, if we remove the debug mode or return false from the debug mode, we will see nothing or this kind of hints.